The boardroom was a fortress of glass and steel, perched high above the city skyline. Executives in tailored suits filled every seat, their eyes darting nervously toward the wall clock. Tension was thick enough to choke on. At the head of the table, the billionaire's white-knuckled grip tightened on his polished desk as he snapped at his assistants. The whispers spread like wildfire. If the French investors weren't impressed today, it could mean catastrophe. Suddenly, the worst news hit. The translator, the only person fluent enough to navigate the complex deal, was unavailable. A wave of panic washed over the room. Vorne hang unansweret. Assistants scrambled, making desperate calls. The murmurs grew louder. How could this happen to us now? In the background, unnoticed and unacknowledged, the black janitor moved quietly, pushing her cart and collecting trash. She caught snippets of harsh words aimed at her presence. Why is she even here at this hour? The room barely glanced her way. One cynical board member smirked and said loud enough for some to hear, "Maybe the janitor speaks French, too?" Laughter rippled around the table, but the janitor's eyes didn't waver. Behind her calm facade burned a fire of pain and defiance. The stakes were colossal, a billion-dollar deal hanging by a thread, hundreds of jobs depending on this meeting's success. The room braced itself for disaster, but in that moment, the janitor paused, steadying herself. The weight of the entire company's future pressed down on everyone, and something inside her ignited. "Hi, my name is Malik. If you believe stories like this need to be heard, please hit like and subscribe right now. Your support helps us shine a light on real injustice." She arrived just before dawn, her footsteps soft against the cold marble floors of the towering office building. The security guard barely glanced her way as she swiped her ID card and passed through the gates that separated her world from the executives above. She moved with quiet determination, pushing her cleaning cart laden with supplies, invisible to the bustling staff who hurried past. Her name was Angela, though few in the building knew it. To most, she was just the janitor, the background noise in the hum of corporate life. She swept floors, emptied trash, and cleaned glass panels that reflected the ambitions of those who hardly noticed her presence. Yet beneath her uniform lay a story untold, a past filled with promise and shattered dreams. Earlier that morning, Angela paused outside a small office where a young assistant struggled with a jammed printer. Without a word, she knelt, her hands steady and sure, fixing the stubborn machine. The assistant offered a hurried thank you, but quickly turned away, absorbed once more in spreadsheets and emails. No one else in the office took note. As she moved down the hallway, she caught fragments of conversations, snide remarks about her race, jokes about her station in life. "She's always lurking," one whispered. "Does she even belong here?" Another sneered. "Maybe she should stick to mopping floors." Angela's heart clenched, but she kept her head down. In the solitude of the janitor's closet, she unfolded a worn photograph from her pocket. A snapshot of herself years ago, dressed sharply in a business suit, a confident smile on her face. That was before life turned cold, before the accusations that drove her from the corporate world she once knew. Now, she wiped a tear away and tucked the photo back into her jacket, whispering, "One day, I'll return." Her routine continued, polishing desks, arranging chairs, wiping fingerprint from glass doors. Each task a silent testament to her resilience. She noticed the subtle ways colleagues avoided eye contact, the hurried footsteps when she passed, the exclusion from conversations and meetings. Yet, Angela was no stranger to invisibility. She had spent years mastering the art of being overlooked, gathering strength in silence. Her mind wandered to the meeting upstairs, the one that could make or break the company's future. She knew the stakes were high, and somewhere deep inside, a flicker of hope stirred. Despite the weight of prejudice and dismissal, Angela carried herself with quiet pride. She was more than the uniform she wore or the task she performed. Behind those tired eyes was a woman ready to reclaim her voice, waiting for the moment when the world would have no choice but to see her. As the morning light streamed through the skyscraper's windows, the building buzzed with activity. But Angela moved like a ghost, unseen, unheard, yet unbroken. The day ahead would test her in ways no one could imagine, and in the shadows of this corporate jungle, a storm was quietly gathering. The clock's relentless ticking filled the air as the minutes slipped away. Upstairs in the sleek boardroom, tension twisted tighter with each passing second. The billion-dollar deal, months in the making, now threatened to crumble in an instant. The translator's sudden absence wasn't just a setback, it was a disaster. Michael, the billionaire CEO, paced like a man trapped in a cage. His polished shoes clicked against the marble floor, matching the frantic beats of his heart. He barked orders at assistants, but the truth was stark. No replacement was available. The woman who bridged cultures, translated complex financial jargon, and smoothed over delicate negotiations was gone. Without her, the entire deal could collapse. Voices muttered in corners, frustration laced with bitterness. One executive whispered, "This is what happens when we lower our standards." Another grumbled, "We're doomed if this deal falls apart." The air was thick with blame, fear, and unspoken prejudice. In the midst of this chaos, a familiar figure moved quietly along the hallway. Angela, the black janitor, pushed her cart, her hand steady despite the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. She had heard the snippets about the missing translator, the desperate search, the looming failure. The fear in the room was palpable, but so was the disdain. She was invisible, a ghost in this world of suits and ambition. Her ears caught the cold words of a board member, barely concealed but sharp as a blade. "Maybe the janitor could step in, huh?" The laughter that followed was hollow and cruel. Angela's fingers tightened around the handle of her cart, her jaw clenched. This wasn't just about a missing translator. It was about the invisible barriers built by racism and doubt. As the staff scrambled, phones ringing off the hook and calendars thrown into disarray, Angela found herself standing just outside the conference room door. The weight of the company's future pressed down on her. Hundreds of jobs were at stake, thousands of livelihoods hanging by a thread. Inside, Michael's voice rose, sharp and desperate. "We cannot fail today. Not now. Not after everything we've built." His eyes scanned the room, landing momentarily on Angela, who met his gaze with a calm he didn't expect. The clock struck the hour. The French investors would arrive soon. Without a translator, they would see chaos and incompetence. The company's reputation and its future will be shattered. Angela took a breath, feeling the fire inside her flare. She wasn't just a janitor. She was more. She knew the language, the business, the culture that had been the lifeblood of her past. And now, when the company needed a lifeline, she was ready. The room was preparing for collapse. But in the silence before the storm, one woman's resolve was about to change everything. If you're still watching, drop a comment below. What would you do in this situation? And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that matter. Angela's voice was soft but firm as she stepped into the conference room, stopping the chaotic energy in its tracks. "I can help," she said, her words slicing through the tension like a blade. Heads turned, eyes narrowing with disbelief. The billionaire CEO, Michael, raised an eyebrow, skepticism etched deep across his face. "This isn't a joke," he snapped. "This meeting is worth hundreds of millions. We need a professional." Angela met his gaze steadily. "I understand. I'm not here to joke. I speak fluent French, and I know corporate finance. I was once the director of operations at a multinational firm in Paris." A hush fell over the room. The assistants exchanged nervous glances. The executives looked skeptical, some even hostile. The very idea of the janitor stepping into such a high-stakes role seemed absurd. Yet Angela's confidence was unwavering. Karen, Michael's assistant, pulled a sleek navy blazer and press skirt from an emergency wardrobe. "You're serious?" she asked, eyes wide. Angela nodded and retreated to the restroom to change, the weight of years of hidden ambition and pain pressing on her shoulders. In the solitude of the restroom, she studied her reflection in the mirror. The woman staring back was a shadow of her former self, but also a flicker of the powerhouse she once was. Memories flooded in, years of success, betrayal, and exile. She smoothed the blazer over her shoulders, straightened the blouse, and took a deep breath. This was her moment. Emerging from a restroom, dressed sharply, Angela's presence commanded attention. The janitor was gone. In her place stood a poised, professional woman ready to reclaim her destiny. The staff barely recognized her, and some shifted uncomfortably under her gaze. Michael whispered, "If this works, you'll have changed everything." The French investors arrived, tall, regal, and exuding the power of old money and tradition. Angela stepped forward, her voice calm and precise as she greeted them in flawless French. The room's atmosphere shifted instantly. What had begun as a crisis was transforming into an opportunity. As she navigated the complex negotiations, translating not just language, but culture and intent, she deflected subtle digs from skeptical board members. Her knowledge of legal precedents, tax structures, and international business was impeccable. The investors responded with growing respect, nodding at her insights and clarifications. One French attorney, sharp-eyed and formidable, challenged her on a regulatory detail. Angela met the challenge head-on, citing recent rulings and industry standards. The tension in the room eased, replaced by a new energy, one of admiration and cautious optimism. Michael watched in stunned silence, realizing for the first time that Angela was not merely a translator. She was the key to saving the deal and the company's future. The room, once filled with doubt and disdain, now hummed with the possibility of victory. Angela's transformation was complete, not just in appearance, but in power and respect. The black janitor was no longer invisible. She was indispensable. The boardroom, once heavy with doubt and whispered insults, now vibrated with a newfound respect. Angela commanded the space with a quiet strength, her every word measured, her tone precise. The French investors leaned in, their skepticism giving way to genuine interest. She was no longer just the janitor they ignored in the hallways. She was the linchpin holding their deal together. Michael sat back, watching as Angela deftly translated the complex financial jargon into French, ensuring every nuance was conveyed perfectly. She wasn't simply a translator. She was an advocate, smoothing over cultural gaps, anticipating concerns before they were voiced. Around the room, whispers began to shift. Some board members exchanged looks, grudgingly acknowledging her expertise. Yet beneath the surface, tension simmered. A few executives whispered doubts, questioning if her sudden rise was a risk. Racism, subtle but persistent, lingered like a shadow. Angela caught the sideways glances, the thinly veiled resentment. But she held her ground. When one skeptical executive interrupted to question her qualifications, she responded with calm authority, recounting her years managing multinational contracts and navigating European markets. The French investors, impressed by her confidence and knowledge, began to ask more pointed questions: tax implications, regulatory hurdles, investment forecasts. Angela answered each with clarity and depth, citing recent legal cases and market trends. Her fluency was more than linguistic, it was cultural and strategic. Philip, the impatient son of the lead investor, challenged a particular tax strategy. Angela didn't falter. She outlined the benefits, the risks, and the precedents, weaving a narrative that reassured the room. Even Alexis, the sharp corporate attorney known for his critical eye, nodded in approval. The atmosphere shifted from skepticism to collaboration. The investors began to smile, exchanging quiet approvals. Angela's poised professionalism had dismantled barriers, turning potential disaster into opportunity. Michael, once consumed by panic, now saw the possibility of salvation. He leaned toward Angela during a brief pause and whispered, "You're not just translating, you're saving this company." Angela's response was a quiet nod. She didn't need to say more. Her work spoke volumes. As the meeting drew to a close, Charles Belmont, the dignified patriarch of the investors, rose and spoke with genuine respect. "Mademoiselle Evans, your expertise and grace have been remarkable." Angela translated his words, but subtly shifted the credit to Michael and the team, showing humility even in triumph. The deal was secured. The future of Grant Holdings was no longer in jeopardy. Back in the quiet that followed, Angela felt a surge of vindication. She had stepped from the shadows into the light, exposing not only her talents, but also the entrenched biases of those who once dismissed her. Her victory was more than professional, it was personal. It was a statement that no one, no matter how invisible, should be underestimated. The room, once a battleground of doubt and prejudice, now stood as a testament to resilience and change. Angela's journey had rewritten the rules of corporate power. The deal's success sent ripples through the company, transforming the very fabric of Grant Holdings. Michael summoned Angela to his office, a mixture of relief and admiration in his eyes. "You saved us," he said simply, his voice heavy with gratitude. "I want you on my executive team. Permanently." Angela paused, the weight of the offer settling over her. She knew this was more than a promotion. It was an opportunity to challenge the system from within. But she also understood the responsibility that came with it. "I'll accept," she said cautiously, "but on 3 conditions." Michael nodded, intrigued. "First," Angela began, "the janitorial and support staff receive a minimum 30% raise. They are the backbone of this building, yet remain invisible until a crisis." Michael raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. "Second, establish a scholarship program for the children of our employees, kids who deserve opportunities regardless of their background." A flicker of approval crossed Michael's face. "And third, I want time to train my replacement. I won't abandon those who still walk these halls under the weight of invisibility." Michael leaned back, considering. These are bold demands. Angela's eyes didn't waver. "They're necessary." After a long pause, Michael extended his hand. "It's a deal." Word of Angela's rise spread quickly. Employees who once ignored her now approached with respect and curiosity. The raises lifted spirits, the scholarships opened doors for many families, and the culture began to shift. Angela made sure to stay connected with the cleaning staff, sharing her journey and inspiring others to believe in their worth. She understood all too well the sting of invisibility and vowed to be a voice for those unheard. Months passed, and Angela's reputation grew beyond the walls of Grant Holdings. Invitations to speak at conferences, leadership forums, and diversity panels arrived. She became a symbol, not just of personal triumph, but of systemic change. Yet, Angela remained grounded. She remembered the darkest days when hope was a distant dream. She kept the worn photograph of her past tucked safely in her office drawer, a reminder of where she came from. One afternoon, as she reviewed new partnership documents, her phone rang. The caller ID showed a Paris number, an echo from her former life. It was David, the husband who had been at the center of the scandal that forced her into exile. His voice was soft, tinged with regret. "I saw the articles. I'm sorry for what I put you through." Angela listened quietly, then spoke with quiet strength. "You don't define me anymore. That chapter is closed." She ended the call and looked out at the city skyline. The journey from janitor to executive was more than a comeback. It was a revolution. Grant Holdings was no longer just a company. It was a testament to resilience, justice, and the unyielding spirit of those who refuse to be invisible. Angela stepped into the office that morning with a quiet confidence that hadn't been there before. The familiar hum of Grant Holdings felt different, charged with possibility and respect. The janitorial uniform was gone, replaced by a tailored navy blazer and sharp heels that clicked with purpose on the marble floors. Colleagues who once avoided her now nodded with acknowledgement. Some lingered, curious and cautious, as if trying to reconcile the woman before them with the one they had overlooked for so long. Angela met their gazes steadily, no longer invisible, no longer silent. She paused briefly outside the cleaning crew's break room. Inside, the older janitor looked up, eyes widening with surprise and pride. Angela smiled warmly and nodded, a silent promise that their work mattered, that their dignity was seen and honored. Later, Angela sat by the window in her new office, the city sprawling beneath her like a sea of endless opportunities. Her phone buzzed, a message from her son, Lucas. "Mom, you inspire me every day." She typed back a simple reply. You gave me strength. Her thoughts drifted to the years of struggle, the nights filled with doubt, the battles fought in silence. Now, standing on the other side, she understood the true weight of resilience. It wasn't just about rising above. It was about lifting others as she climbed. A memory surfaced, her first day back in the corporate world, the cold stares, the whispered judgments. She had carried those moments like scars, but they no longer defined her. Instead, they fueled her determination to change the narrative for those still unseen. As sunlight streamed through the window, Angela looked out at the skyline, a symbol of both challenge and triumph. She whispered to herself, now, nobody will ever look through us again. Her journey was far from over, but this chapter closed with hope. Hope for justice, equality, and the power of a single voice to spark change. The room was silent except for the distant sounds of the city waking up. Angela's smile lingered, a quiet testament to the strength born from pain and the promise of a better tomorrow. If you believe in second chances and breaking barriers, share this story. To viewers in the USA, UK, and Canada, your voice matters. Together, we can change the world.